NFL Draft 2 weeks from tonight. Mac Jones still the favorite to go number 3 to the 49ers, though the odds have swung a little bit more toward Justin Fields after 49ers head coach Kyle Shanahan attended Fields' second pro day yesterday when Mac Jones was at the time minus 225. Now minus 200, and Fields plus 170 to go number 3. San Francisco traded up to 3, presumably to draft a quarterback. Trey Lance, long shot, plus 450. Zach Wilson, likely going to be gone by then. Probably going number 2 overall to the Jets. All right, let's get Ryan Wilson in here. He has Mac Jones going number 3 to the 49ers, and you've had that since the trade, I believe. Are you wavering at all after what happened yesterday?
Wavering might be too strong a word, Chris, but between the grapevine and the tea leaves, it still feels like Mac Jones. That said, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch were at the pro day for Justin Fields, so they're still trying to figure this thing out. No one really knows what's going to happen. My hunch is that it's going to be Mac Jones. You mentioned the trade up a few weeks ago from 12 to 3 to get the third quarterback there. We'll find out who it is in 2 weeks, but it feels like Mac Jones, given Kyle Shanahan's track record with those types of quarterbacks. Yes, you could point to the more athletic RG3 back in 2012 when they were both in Washington, but Shanahan, both his dad and Kyle, had to tailor that offense around what RG3 had done at Baylor. I feel like with Mac Jones, he comes in right away and can give you everything you want and what fits the Kyle Shanahan quarterback. That said, Justin Fields ain't a bad option either as a 1B. He could end up being 1A. We'll find out soon enough. But right now, I'm still leaning towards Mac Jones. You get plus money with Justin Fields, but Mac Jones it is for the time being.
As for Fields, his over-under draft position is 4.5. You have the Falcons taking him at number 4 in your latest mock. Also a chance somebody trades up to number 4 for a quarterback like Justin Fields. So are you going over or under here?
I'm actually going to go over and stick with me while I go through this. So we know the top 3 quarterbacks off the board. I think Mac Jones probably goes 3. I feel pretty good about that. If the Falcons are all in on Matt Ryan, they could either stay put and take Kyle Pitts or an offensive lineman, or they could trade down. But let's assume they stay put, in which case they take Kyle Pitts. So that leaves the door open for Justin Fields going later than 4. He would get the 4.5 there. Cincinnati's at 5. They're not going to take a quarterback, and they don't like to move around the draft board. So you have to get down to 6. Miami, not a quarterback there as well. So you start at 7 with the Detroit Lions, who could very easily be in the quarterback hunt, even though they traded for Jared Goff. But I feel like if the Falcons decide to stick with Mac Ryan, and that could certainly happen given Arthur Blank's affinity for the quarterback, then perhaps they go in another direction with Kyle Pitts, in which case that gets Justin Fields outside the first 4 picks.
Okay, so that's 4 quarterbacks there. Trey Lance would be a 5th quarterback. His over-under is 6.5. Now, with the current order, you'd think under, right? But someone could trade up for him as well. So are you going over under this?
I'm going to go over again for virtually the same reason I gave for Justin Fields. This all again relies on Atlanta staying put. If they fall in love with Penei Sewell or Kyle Pitts, for example, then things get confusing. The Bengals aren't moving off the pick. The Dolphins don't need a quarterback. Then you get to 7, which gets you over Trey Lance. And if you get to 7 and Justin Fields and Trey Lance are still there, then obviously you've hit the over on both of those young men. So, but I think you're onto something, Chris. I think teams are going to try desperately to trade up once we get past the 49ers pick at 3 and figure out the 2 remaining quarterbacks, whether it's Justin Fields and Trey Lance or Mac Jones, and then go from there. But as we sit here right now, assuming the Falcons stay put, I like the over for both Trey Lance and Justin Fields.
You had a team trading up to draft him in your latest mock, that team being Washington, but trading up to number 8, which obviously is over. Over-under for total quarterbacks taken in the first round set at 5.5, but it's heavily juiced to the under at minus 450 because we're going to get 5 quarterbacks. Could be 5 in the top 8, could be 5 in the top 10. But we may not get another one, and I don't think you've had a single mock where you've had 6 quarterbacks taken in the first round, have you?
No, I haven't. That's right, Chris. So things get interesting once you get past those top 5 names you mentioned. And the name you hear, and Pete likes this guy, Pete Prisco, Davis Mills, the Stanford quarterback, who only has 11 starts. Kyle Trask has started for 2 seasons. Kellen Mond, who's not on this list, who I'd like to start at 44 games. But there's a chance at the bottom of the first round, a slight chance, but a chance nonetheless, that a team drafts a quarterback like Davis Mills just to get that 5th-year option, that extra year on that rookie deal. Could someone like the Saints do it? Could even a team like the Steelers do it? Could the Bears try to trade back up in the first round and do it? It's a long shot. I like the under of 5.5. I think those 5 quarterbacks you talked about all go. They're all long gone by the time we get to the 15th pick. It's just a matter of whether there's one team out there that wants to get a 5th-year option on not a project quarterback, but a quarterback that's not in the first tier that we often talk about, and try to get him at the bottom of round 1. I don't think it's going to happen, so I'm going to go under that 5.5.
Okay, working our way a little bit further down the board. Patrick Surtain, his over-under for pick is set at 10.5. In your latest mock, you had him number 9 going to the Broncos.
Yeah, 10.5 is a great number. I like the under. We've talked about this week in and week out. There's going to be a run of offensive players pretty much throughout the top 10. But I think once you get to 9, where the Denver Broncos are sitting, they could be in the mix for a defensive player. They could be in the mix for a cornerback. And then at number 10 are the Cowboys. And every single mock draft I've done, what feels like the last 3 months, I've had them taking a cornerback. The interesting thing is, for Patrick Surtain, Caleb Farley is no longer in the mix as a top 10 pick because of the back surgery he had a few weeks ago. But I think Surtain has a chance to go 9 or 10, which gets him under that 10.5. I like the under here.
And you also had him as your first defensive player taken. He's the favorite to be the first defensive player off the board, plus 130. How confident are you that he is going to be the first defensive pick?
Yeah, I like that. I like that. I like that wager. I just mentioned Caleb Farley. A month ago, Caleb Farley was my cornerback 1 just based on the way he played at Virginia Tech, opted out in 2020, had the back procedure. And I've talked to NFL teams that are actually worried about taking him now as a top 10 pick because of that procedure. You don't know how healthy he's going to be throughout the course of his career. So he falls. Kwity Paye is potentially an option as one of the first defensive players off the board, the edge rusher out of Michigan. But he's probably not going to go before Patrick Surtain. And again, we've talked about it frequently. This is an offensive-heavy draft in the top half of the first round, and I think Patrick Surtain is the surest of sure products in terms of defensive players that are ready to go from day 1. I like him as the first guy off the board on the defensive side of the ball. All
right, first non-quarterback off the board. You had quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, 4 in your latest mock. Now, the favorite here is Kyle Pitts, but, I mean, you could see Penei Sewell, you could see Jamar Chase as well. Who are you going with?
I'm going to go with Jamar Chase. That's a little better money than what Kyle Pitts gives you, and Kyle Pitts feels like the slam dunk. So I'm going to reverse course as to what I said a few moments ago about the Falcons staying put at 4, because if they say put at 4, I think Kyle Pitts is certainly in the mix there. But let's say they trade down and some team comes up against a quarterback. Then you're at 5 in the Cincinnati Bengals. Slam dunk would be to take Penei Sewell. But I think the Bengals might actually think about taking Jamar Chase. He would reunite him with Joe Burrow. They had so much success together in 2019 at LSU. And if that's the case, Jamar Chase has a really good chance to be that first non-quarterback off the board. We know what he can do based on this 2019 tape when he was the best player on that team at wide receiver, and that included Justin Jefferson, who had a fantastic rookie season for the Vikings. So I think if the Falcons trade down, Kyle Pitts is no longer an option there at 4 for Atlanta because they've moved on. I think the Bengals will think long and hard about taking Jamar Chase at 5 to give Joe Burrow another weapon.
All right, let's talk running backs. I was a bit surprised to see that Najee Harris is actually the favorite to be the first running back off the board at minus 145. I thought it would be Travis Etienne. I feel like you've kind of come around on Etienne being the first guy off the board. Pete Prisco has always been on Travis Etienne ahead of Najee Harris. Is that your feeling here, Etienne over Harris?
So I like Najee Harris a little better than Travis Etienne, but I think you're right, Chris, that's the way you're laying it out. I think NFL teams are going to lean towards Travis Etienne. He's a little younger. He's a little more versatile in terms of his lateral mobility. He doesn't weigh quite as much as Najee Harris, who's insanely athletic. And Najee Harris is minus money right now, so I think you go with the plus money to Travis Etienne, who has a chance to go anywhere starting at 18 when the Dolphins are on the board with their second first-round pick to surround Tua with some playmakers all the way down to the bottom of the first round at 32, where the Buccaneers could certainly look to get a running back as well. So I like the plus money on Travis Etienne. And look out for Javonte Williams at plus 475. There's some conversation that he might be in that mix as well. There's a reason the odds are so long, but I think that he's a guy to keep an eye on. I had him going high in the second round in my latest mock draft, but I wouldn't be surprised. I'd be a little surprised, but I wouldn't be shocked, let me say, if Javonte Harris ended up being the first running back off the board, especially given those that plus 475, which looks pretty attractive.
All right, Ryan Wilson likes Najee Harris more than Travis Etienne, but he knows that scouts and NFL executives are likely going with Travis Etienne, or at least that's what we think at this time as the #1 running back drafted. Ryan, thank you so much. Latest Pick Six podcast with Will Brinson on the NFL draft quarterbacks. The latest episode featuring Mac Jones. Why it's time to seriously consider him as an elite prospect.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.